Greetings, Sentinels fans! Let's do another comparison from edition to edition. And, with Sentinels Definitive Edition digital version being crowdfunded, I think now's a good time to start with, another from the core game. Let's talk about Argent Adept. Argent Adept is another hero who has had some more minor changes compared to the other decks. He's a lot like Legacy in this regard. Argent Adept has a more unusually built deck than the others. He has the one-shots and the ongoing cards, but none of his ongoing cards provide passive bonuses. They don't provide powers either. Instead, each ongoing card has effects that have to be activated by powers connected to the character card or the instruments. This means that Anthony Drake has a lot of flexibility when it comes to his support capabilities when he's using powers, but he is also heavily reliant on his setup. Imagine how much that sucked back when Infernal Relics was the second expansion for Enhanced Edition, back when about half the villains there could easily wipe your setup. Now, with Definitive Edition, full setup wipes are a bit uncommon. They can still happen, but Argent can reasonably hold on to his setup fairly well in most games, especially when many other heroes can afford to be more cavalier with their setup cards. Now, on to the changes, starting with the cards that didn't make the transition. Yeah, I think this is another case of all the cards having made it in one way or another. So let's look at some changes. This time I'm going by card type, starting with one-shots. Arcane Cadence is exactly the same in both versions, just the wording of EEs reflects the changes of the game as a whole. Reveal the next 5 cards of Argent's deck. Draw 1, replace 1, discard 1, bury 1, play 1. It's probably your primary method of sifting through your deck to find the stuff that you want. Instrumental Conjuration is slightly different between versions. The primary effect is the same. Summon the instrument of your choice, as long as it isn't in your hand or otherwise restricted from you, it enters play. Enhanced Edition has you draw a card after doing so, while Definitive Edition has you play a card instead. Polyphoric Flare, which has had the correction to Polyphonic Flare, has gotten a slight boost. EE Argent deals himself 2 damage and gets to use power if he got hurt this way. Since Argent Adept in particular loves power uses, this is pretty useful. And yet I don't often use this card in my games. The new Flare changes the self-damage to fixed damage, which of course isn't affected by damage boosts, reductions, or redirections. And regardless if he actually takes the damage, he can use a power, or he can draw 2 cards and speed along his collection of songs. Silver Shadow is exactly the same in both versions. Activate an accompany text, draw or play a card. So let's go right to Vernal Sonata, which is also exactly the same in both versions. Except that EE's Sonata prevents you from grabbing another Sonata from Argent's trash, while DE's doesn't have that restriction. Now let's move to the instruments. Apuku's Drum used to have you activate the accompany of a rhythm card and then the perform of a melody. For those unfamiliar with the deck, I will go into that terminology later. For now, I'm just doing the instruments because I'll be quicker. The new drum changed over to activating the accompany of a rhythm and the perform of a rhythm. This does mean you can activate the same card if you choose, though the new drum only affects rhythm cards now. Drake's Pipes used to activate the perform of 2 different melody cards, while the new pipes got a nice boost. They can now activate the perform of a melody, and then the perform of any other song you have in play. So yeah, it's still better to have melodies out, but this gives the pipes so much more flexibility, allowing the use of the primary effect of any song, which is appropriate for the instrument that Anthony Drake created himself, instead of the ones he borrowed from another virtuoso. The enhanced version of Isidar's Horn lets Argent use the perform of a melody and the accompany of a harmony card, while the definitive horn echoes the pipes. It plays the perform of a melody, and then any one accompany you want. The fact that it echoes the pipes makes me wonder if Drake has a connection to the horn that he doesn't have with the other instruments. Musarachni's harp is probably the only instrument that hasn't changed between versions. In both, it can activate the perform of a harmony card and the accompany of a harmony card. Telemon's Lyra could, in Enhanced Edition, play the perform effect of a harmony card and the accompany of a rhythm card. In Definitive Edition, you could do that, or you could switch them and activate the perform of a rhythm and the accompany of a harmony. Nice boost to flexibility there. Finally, Zeus Bell could activate the perform of a rhythm card, and then the accompany of either a rhythm or a harmony card. In Definitive Edition, though, this completely changes to either activating any one perform, or activating any 2 accompany effects. So overall, the instruments have been made more flexible. to allow for different combinations to happen. And now onto the songs. And here is where things get complicated. Each song, with the exception of the melodies, has two effects. The primary effect, the perform, and the secondary effect, the accompany. Generally, the primary effect is more useful, but this game can really change up what your priorities are, and any support effect can be more or less useful with different circumstances. What's more, with the instruments, the game makes you want to use a bunch of these at once, or sometimes the same ones more than once. Yeah, if you can get more than one power use in a single turn and have compatible instruments, the wording of the game allows you to use the same effect as long as you are activating it with different instruments. So really judging a primary or secondary effect with these is kinda difficult. Also, for my purposes, some of the cards have one effect not change at all, but the other change completely, making my job of comparison even harder. So I guess we should just get to it. Let's start with the melodies. These cards are different in that they only have a perform effect, not an accompany. Melody 1 is Rhapsody of Vigor, which is simple enough. Up to 5 targets can regain hit points, though in Enhanced it was only 1 hit point each, and Definitive had 2 hit points each. Melody 2 is Saraband of Destruction, which in Enhanced could destroy an ongoing or environment card, while the Definitive one could destroy an ongoing card or a target with 2 hit points or less. Take that, birds! Do note that it's not one of those cards that could destroy any environment card. It has to be either an ongoing or a severely weakened target. Melody 3 is Scherzo of Frost and Flame, which in Enhanced Edition has Argent deal 1 target 1 cold damage, and then 1 target 1 fire damage. These could be the same targets or different targets. Definitive Scherzo does the same thing, but ups the damage from 1 to 2, making it more useful as a damage dealer. Instead of dealing the bare minimum of 2 damage, you can deal a pretty decent 4 damage. Now we move on to the harmonies, which means double the effects to look at. Alacrity of Subdominant has the perform that allows any hero to play a card, and it's the same in both versions. Both versions also have the accompany, give Argent an extra power use in exchange for the card leaving play. Although, where it goes is different. In Enhanced Edition it goes into the trash, while Definitive has it go on top of Argent's deck. I'd say these are different shades of inconvenient. Either potentially permanently lose the effect, or potentially slow down or even halt your growth. You will have to draw that card and replay it if you want to use the effect again, after all. Next is Sadistic Dissonant, a bit of a sacrifice play card as both perform effects have you destroy one of your own instruments in order to blow up any single non-character card in play. The accompany effects have changed, though. The Enhanced one has Argent discarding 2 cards to draw 3 cards, and the Definitive one has an ally play a single card. Both useful, both very different. The final harmony is Inspiring Supertonic, where in both versions, both effects are completely unchanged. The perform has a hero use a power, the accompany has Argent heal 2 points. This card and Alacrity of Subdominant have become a focal point for a lot of strategies concerning Argent Adept, since he is able to give an extra power use to himself. And, as I explained earlier, since this card itself is not a power, it can be activated more than once in a turn. So you can use the perform on Musaragni's Harp, the perform on Telemon's Lyra, and the second perform on Drake's Pipes to give Argent a ton of extra power uses, allowing him to use the secondary effects on the instruments to do other things at the same time. This is why Argent loves out-of-turn power uses, because he can easily turn 1 power use into 3. You can even use the accompany on Subdominant to potentially get a power use out of the rest of the instruments by using the accompany on Isidar's Horn, the accompany on Musaragni's Harp, potentially the accompany on Telemon's Lyra, and one of the accompanies on Zoo's Bell. You could use your final power to activate a Puku's Drum to get all 6 instruments going. Speaking of the drum, let's get to the rhythm cards. Counterpoint Bulwark has the same general effect in both versions, but they were boosted for the new edition. The Enhanced Perform has Argent give 2 targets a shield, reducing damage dealt to those targets by 1 until his next turn. This was boosted to selecting 3 targets in Definitive Edition, therefore covering more of your team. The original accompany had 1 hero draw a card. The new accompany has 3 heroes do so, much more effective. Enhanced Inventive Preparation has each hero look at the top card of their deck and either choose to discard it or put it back. Definitive Preparation does this too, but also has 1 hero then draw 2 cards. The accompanies are different though. The original has someone other than Argent play a card while the new one has Argent discover an ongoing card, speeding up his own setup. Syncopated Onslaught has pretty much stayed the same between versions, with it perform boosting attacks from a few heroes by 1, the difference there being that Argent could boost 2 targets in Enhanced Edition, where it can boost 3 in Definitive. The accompany of dealing 1 target 1 sonic damage is the same, but it is irreducible damage in Definitive Edition. I find it interesting the amount of targets being affected by effects from Onslaught and Bulwark, considering that the game can be played by 3, 4, or 5 heroes. So for Onslaught, Argent can boost basically the whole team in a small enhanced game, and a little less than half in a large enhanced game. And this covers even more when you consider that Argent himself is generally not going to be the damage dealer, as he is usually much more useful as a support, though he can dish out the pain if need be. He just needs to be built for it. So if you exclude Argent, then the whole team, or exactly half the team in both extremes. In Definitive though, then the whole team in both a 3-person and a 4-person game, and most of the team in a 5. Now Bulwark is a shield which Argent himself will likely want just as much as the rest, so he factors into the coverage here. And here we get to another thing. I feel like even though Argent is still as wonderful now as he always was, he wasn't updated enough. Maybe the problem is me, but I feel like Definitive Argent struggles to set up quickly enough to really shine. He has various assisted draws, can get instruments easy with the Conjuration, and he has Arcane Cadence to cut through a chunk of his deck to get the stuff you want. But this is mostly the same setup boosts that he had in Enhanced Edition. He still has to fairly slowly get his music in play. I feel like the speed up warrants a few extra boosts to his own speed. We do have the new accompany for Inventive Preparation to get some much needed songs out, but otherwise I think he struggles to get his music in play. It's just cadence, preparation, and regular card plays. Even so, he can use his music selfishly for setup as well. Anyways, Argent has seen some direct boosts to his abilities, while also getting some abilities switched out. The deck seems to feel pretty much the same in Definitive Edition as it is in Enhanced, for better or worse. This might be up to your interpretation, but I feel like Argent Adept didn't change enough to work with the changes the new edition made. This isn't quite as egregious as with Legacy, but I still think more could have been done to get him up to snuff. And that about covers it. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Take care, friends. Is one of the rabbits still in here? I'm being haunted by ghost rabbits. But they're in the other room. No, they're just on the other side of the door.